Hello and welcome to Manga 96, and today we have the review of One Piece manga chapter 1048 titled 20 Years. I didn't expect for this chapter to hit me as hard as it did, and not in a good way. To clarify, I do think that this chapter is good, but at the same time it made me realize just how tired I am from this soul raid. What made me realize this is the clash between Luffy and Kaido in this chapter. Despite it being cool and all, it did feel like I was watching the anime as opposed to reading the manga, with the clash being so drawn out and actually it hasn't even finished yet, which is something the manga has never done before, as the clashes are usually brief as opposed to the anime adaptation, where they are more stretched mainly for the purpose of filling the runtime of the episode. That's exactly how this clash felt for me in this chapter, where it felt more like padding as opposed to being something necessary to see. If we add the flashback to this, it makes it even worse. I get what Oda was trying to do with this flashback and what it built towards too, but after 4 years of constantly showing us of how miserable the people of Wano are, I don't think that this flashback, which doesn't show us any new information but rather shows us the tragedy of Wano for the millionth time, was unnecessary in my opinion. But if nothing else, it led to the conclusion of Orochi's fate. At least I hope it's the end with him. I know that this all sounds so negative, especially for a chapter that's good, but I'm honestly too tired with this raid, and at this point I cannot wait for it to finally end. Hopefully it will be the next chapter, or at the latest the chapter after that, because I honestly can't see on how Oda could possibly prolong this any further than he already has. But you never know, he can always surprise us, and we will have Kaido vs Luffy continue for another 20 chapters. No, that will be insanity. What this chapter also made me realize is that now I'm dreading to read the promised final war, because it's bound to be longer than the Onigashima raid, which already by itself is longer than the whole of Skypiea. Just imagine having to read 80 to 100 chapters. No matter how good this final war may be, there will come a point where reading it week to week will be nothing but hell. As Onigashima overall is pretty good, but despite that I'm sick and tired of it and can't wait for the day where it finally ends with Kaido's defeat. I can see something similar happening with the final war when we eventually reach it, but then it'll be especially bitter, because waiting for the final war to end as soon as possible would mean for One Piece to end as soon as possible, and let's be honest, we all want for One Piece to continue for as long as it can. Now let's move to a brighter topic, and that's the cover page, where we learn that the intruders are actually Ichiji and Treijo. The revelation did surprise me a bit, regardlessly on how obvious it was, as I really didn't expect them to try and rescue their siblings, especially Ichiji, so I wonder what led them to attempt such a suicide mission in the first place. In this cover page, we also see Cracker for the first time after Luffy sent him flying, so I'm guessing that it's just a matter of time before we actually see Katakuri again, which will be a delight when it happens. The chapter starts with the aforementioned clash between Kaido and Luffy, where Kaido turns into a fire dragon, which is first of all awesome to see. Second, it explains King's ultimate move, which would indicate that this is also Kaido's strongest attack. But above else, I haven't seen anyone complain on this fact. From where did Kaido pull this shit out? As let's be honest, if Luffy or any of the good guys except Zoro pulled a stunt like that, you bet a loud portion of the fandom will be up in arms on this is bullshit. They shouldn't be able to do something like that. But when it's Kaido or any other antagonist, no matter how bullshit this power may seem, nobody complains, which is pretty hypocritical from the fans. Anyway, Luffy and Kaido clash in an epic fashion, and we'll leave it at that for the remainder of the chapter, which is something I'm not too fond of, as it does seem to me like Oda is just stalling at this point in order for Kaido to be defeated in chapter 1050 or something like that, rather than to just end it here and now, which I would prefer more. But my wishes don't matter, as after this clash we get a flashback which shows us events that we knew of before but we haven't seen, like the Daimyo's rebellion against Orochi and Kaido. This is all nice to see, and it did build up nicely for the finale of the chapter, but once again we learned nothing new from this flashback, and it only reinforced Wano's tragedy, but we had this tragedy constantly shoved up our throats for the past 4 years constantly. So from that perspective, was this flashback really necessary? I guess it will be helpful for casual readers or those having troubles with reading comprehension, but if you don't fall into either of those categories, it does feel unnecessary, at least to me. Then it's finally time for the lost samurai to make his grand entrance, as Denjiro shows up in the last second to slice off Orochi's head, hopefully his last head. That way saving Hiyori from being killed by the burning snake that is actually a cockroach. Now, after being absent from the manga for more than a year, does this entrance and him finishing off Orochi, hopefully, make it all worth in the end? Well, not really, but if nothing else, he didn't take up pointless screen time like Kawamatsu did, and if nothing else, he did something with hopefully killing Orochi, so while the role that he played in this arc is by no means perfect, at least it's a magnitude better than what Kawamatsu got, for example. In general, I think that the scabbards would have been handled a lot better after their fight with Kaido. If just some of them would have gotten meaningful deaths, but we all know how that turned out. There is still hope that they could do something of importance in the remainder of the arc, but at this point this seems more of wishful thinking rather than a reality that could possibly happen. For the final scene of the chapter, we're back with Luffy and Kaido's clash, which is still ongoing, with the lanterns slowly approaching them in the sky, thereby hopefully signalizing the end of the raid. Now, I know that I may have been too harsh in this review, that you can chalk this lasting clash between Luffy and Kaido to Oda trying to build tension for the finale and the Wano flashback in order to experience the emotional high when Orochi's head gets cut off by Denjiro. But, on the other hand, this raid has been going on for almost 2 years, so all the tension is long gone, and this looks to me more like Oda is stalling than anything else. As for the flashback, once again, Wano's strategy was frontline and center now for the past 4 years since the arc began, so I don't think you needed a flashback to once again remind us on what a piece of shit Orochi is or was, depending if he really died in this chapter, which is always questionable in this series. The only thing that I hope is for Kaido to be defeated in the next 2 chapters so that we can finally close the chapter on this raid, as there are still some exciting things to cover in Wano that don't have anything to do with the raid, Kaido or Orochi. All in all, while I have complained throughout most of this video, this chapter had some epic moments and the end of the false shogun of Wano, hopefully that is. And that'll be all for this video. If you like this video, leave a like, leave your thoughts in the comments below, or subscribe to the channel for more One Piece content as well as other manga content. And until next time, take care.